I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us to speak today on subcutaneous migaldendronib, or MGB, for the treatment of DME and wet AMD. Here are my disclosures. Of note, I'm a consultant for Asvattha Therapeutics. We're all familiar with the current challenges with anti-VEGF intravitreal injections for the treatment of retinal vascular disease. Enter nanomedicine dendrimers, a potential shift in treatment paradigm. Subcutaneous MGB is a novel nanomedicine hydroxyl dendrimer covalently linked to a VEGF receptor TKI. It normalizes VEGF, IL-6, and IL-1 beta expression in activated cells in the retina, addressing the root cause of fluid generation in DME and wet AMD. We have positive efficacy and safety data, and sub-Q MGB markedly reduces the treatment burden of intravitreal injections. We have an agreed to phase 2b/3 study design with the FDA and are excited to move forward with clinical development. And from a market research perspective, we have confirmed a high degree of confidence in the shift in treatment paradigm from patients, providers, and also payers. Migaldendronib is systemically safe nanomedicine, and here you can see that migaldendronib is much larger than the current generation of TKIs. Because it is not metabolized, there is no liver exposure. It is cleared by the kidney in 2 days. Let's now look at the phase 2 chronic dosing results. This was an innovative study design in that all patients had to show that they were anti-VEGF responders before coming into the MGB treatment period. Once that was shown, patients received subcutaneous MGB either every 2 or every 4 weeks out to 40 weeks. The supplemental rescue criteria were predetermined prior to study design. Baseline characteristics showed that generally these patients had bilateral disease, particularly in the DME population, and were highly VEGF dependent in both eyes. Note here the study and the fellow eyes were highly VEGF dependent coming into the study. MGB was well tolerated, and there were no clinically significant changes from baseline in renal, hepatic, or cardiac values while on study. There were no ocular or systemic serious adverse events that were deemed MGB treatment related. Injection site reactions were the most common adverse event reported related to MGB and occurred in approximately 8% out of a total of 316 subcutaneous injections. These injection site reactions were localized, transient, mostly mild, and none were severe. Turning now to efficacy, with mean change from baseline in DME and wet AMD study eyes out to week 40. Here you can see best corrected visual acuity and central subfield thickness were improved in both DME and wet AMD study eyes. And we showed a marked reduction in the need for supplemental intravitreal aflibercept in study eyes during MGB 40-week treatment period, with approximately a 5 to 6-fold reduction in the need for intravitreal injections versus pre-study IVT. Now turning to the fellow eyes, we also confirmed a bilateral MGB treatment effect with this subcutaneous delivery. And here you can see stabilization in best corrected visual acuity and central subfield thickness in both DME and wet AMD fellow eyes. And again, a marked reduction in the need for supplemental intravitreal aflibercept in fellow eyes during MGB 40-week treatment period, with a more than 9-fold reduction versus pre-study IVT in the fellow eyes of these patients. Subcutaneous MGB is a novel nanomedicine for the potential treatment of DME and wet AMD. It shows a bilateral treatment effect via subcutaneous administration with improvements in BCVA and CST in DME and wet AMD study eyes and stability in DME and wet AMD fellow eyes. No safety issues, as seen with other TKIs, have been seen, and subcutaneous administration is well tolerated. We have also shown a marked reduction in the need for supplemental intravitreal anti-VEGF in both study and fellow eyes in these patients, and in both DME and wet AMD. MGB has the potential for safe at-home administration, exhibiting a bilateral treatment effect with a monthly subcutaneous administration, which may be an alternative option to frequent in-office intravitreal injections. And we are happy to report that we have a well-defined path forward to MGB registration with a successful FDA meeting. And I also wanted to bring your attention to our presentation Wednesday in the Diabetic Eye Disease 3 session in the afternoon on May 5th. Thank you very much.